is a call meeting for the purpose of discussing the school reopening plan for fall 2020 and further discussion. We're going to start this meeting with a prayer, and I'll ask Rick Bailey to lead us in that, please.
Pray with me, please. Dear Lord, we thank you for the day. We thank you for the opportunities that we have, not only in Barrett County, the state of Georgia, country that we live in. But Lord, if we can meet like this and discuss, Lord, that heavy on each one of our hearts here. We all love Barrett County, the children, the citizens, the parents, all it takes to make it, in my opinion, a great county. Lord, just give us all a sense tonight of working together in unity to do what's best for our community, with the planning of how school looks like when we get to the point that we are reopening, and what that does look like. Lord, give us strength, wisdom, help us treat one another with ability and understand that Lord, we may see things differently. But, Lord, at the end of the day, we all want what's best for our school system, for our county. Lord, just lead God and direct everything that's said in this meeting may be clean to you. I ask all of you. Amen.
All right. Dr. Michael, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to you. I understand you have a presentation for us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, we're back, and appreciate you all coming out on a Monday. And as we started our planning for all of this, one of the first things I said back, I think it was June 16th, things are very likely to change. And this is kind of at the point where we find ourselves. So I'm going to run through kind of an update where we are and where we'd like to go concerning our plan for getting school reopened. Scroll down, and here's just a quick reminder here. This is the page shows our plan that our first one we put out, and just want to call your attention to the part there that says based on that information in this action plan can change at any time. That's kind of where we are. We've been saying that all along. We are at our current level. We are at yellow. And if you'll recall back on June 16th when I brought you the original plan, we weren't sure where we were going to be at that point exactly. We did say that our preferred option was to start on August 4th, 2020 with students and staff on campus, optional remote learning, and preventative measures in place. We now, of course, have found ourselves more into the yellow band there, and one of the top pieces of that was looking at a delayed start. So that's what we'll talk to you about here tonight. Still looking at students and staff returning on campus would be our preference at this point. Again, with the optional remote learning and if you want even more stepped up preventative measures. Again, this is nothing really new, but I wanted to bring yours and folks' attention back to that fact that we've been saying this all along. This isn't really totally new information, but some of the details. I want to give you a few updates here. As far as the distant learning goes, we have closed that out. We actually had quite a few more opt for that than we expected. We've got about approximately 0.5% of our student population. We got last count was 3,790. Out of those, elementary are 1,780, middle school 975, and high school 1,053. There may be a couple of duplicates in that, so that can fluctuate slightly, but there shouldn't be too many at this point. That's been a good job of going through and cleaning that up. Quick update on COVID-19 and our surrounding counties to kind of show you where we are there. As you can see, we've got it listed to our population size here in the first column. Number of cases. The unfortunate one, we definitely don't like to see the number of deaths here and hospitalizations. 14-day of new cases, that's our most current verified data. Unfortunately, I have so many things dealing with this whole crisis. We do have some lagging data. We have other pieces of that, but this is the verified data that we have right now. And then a look at the cases per 100,000. Again, that's the most verified data we have. So you can see that Barrow County is nowhere near what Gwinnett County is, or Hall, or even Clark in some of the areas there. We take a pretty good jump down with our new cases from Clark's 460 to 195. 195 too many, but this is our reality right now. And then you can see our other neighboring areas also there too. And if you look at that broken down, we're cases per 100,000, Gwinnett's around 400, we're down around 205. So that's what kind of brings us to being, well, we're fewer in the yellow, but we're not up in that red spot where we see some of our neighbors. And this is just another way to look at that with the cases per 100,000 citizens. The we just kind of see where we fall right there. So, one of the reasons, and when we get to the end of my recommendation, will be for you all to think about, will be to allow us to push back our start date, to have some more time for our staff and for some things that have in place. We want our teachers, we want our staff, we want, more importantly, we want our parents and students to have as close to a normal experience educational as they can. It's not going to be normal. I don't know when it'll be what we might call normal again, but we want to give them the best chance of having the most uninterrupted and best learning situation we can. We do have a few updates here with supplies and some of our technology. Some of our PPE, the majority of it is here, but we do still have some that are trickling in and on back order because supply-wise, everybody's ordering the same things right now. Same with some of the cleaning supplies. Although that is actually, since I wrote this, it's gotten a little bit better, but we still have a little bit out there. Technology items has kind of got some delays and backlogs there, and that's important because we really want our teachers. When we went out in March, we relied heavily on our teachers to use their own technology and their own Wi-Fi and their own bandwidth, and bless their hearts, they did it and didn't complain. But we don't want that to. We want that to be minimal, if at all, this time. So we've had to. You all have approved some items, and we've got them ordered, and we've got some more things that we need to get in to make sure that we can set up the classrooms for those empty classrooms where the teachers can come in and teach online instead of having to do it all from home. And then the auto enhancements is building in a streaming service. Those are the cameras in the classroom, and we're still waiting on a little bit delay on that one too. And we feel like that's such an integral part. It's worth waiting on being right out of the classroom. And they're working hard, and they'll have it done when we need it to be done. But they are a little delayed. So any other new technology, new software, they've got to debug it before they move it. Facilities-wise, we're in pretty good shape, but we still have a few construction-related work areas, such as bottle fillers in all the schools, and pulling out some of the floor coverings, carpets, in some of our isolation rooms. So, in other words, the student is suspected of having COVID. Many of our schools have sectioned off a small room where they can go. Most of those have been offices, so we really want to pull the carpets out, put tile down. That's going apace, but it would give them a little breathing room. As you know, our maintenance folks are small but mighty. Address building safely preparation related items that teachers and staff may see that maybe we haven't seen once they get in the building. So getting some of that input from them we feel is important. Our custodians are trained very well, but we want them to have a chance to work on some of that when there are more occupants in the building. They have done a fantastic job, and they've been all summer and really since March. Some of them have been the only people in those buildings. So more or less, between them and the principals. And then we also have asked our teachers to remove some further non-essential items from their rooms. So soft goods, furniture, things like that, rugs and those type of things. Allow them some time to do that as well as prepare for lessons. And really the big thing is our staff. I've said before, I always say, tell my staff when I was a principal all the time, I love you more than anything, but you're number two. Kids have got to come first, and they know that. But we want to give them every chance to support our kids that we can, the best way they can, and to feel as safe as they can and everything else. So we really have talked with the principals several times over the course of the past month or so. They still feel that they need more time for their teachers to pre-plan and get ready for a different type of school. Can't argue with that. We would also give additional time to ID placement of teachers who need some accommodations. We've been personnel and planning have been working very, very hard on that, and we're trying to do our absolute best to try to get 100% of these folks taken care of and working as we can. We need that, of course. Additional time also to pick some further teachers teachers beyond the ADA. What we've done, and I haven't seen many districts doing this, we're doing our best to take the ones that do have a valid medical reason not to be in the classroom with students during all of this, and have them do our virtual teaching for the most part. But we've had so many sign up for virtual teaching, now we're going to have to go for what I call our next tier, which are those that have volunteered to do it. So we're going to have to move into that. And again, what we all dread is if we have to go back offline again down the road. For some reason, if we're forced into that and go to 100% virtual online learning, but we need our teachers to be prepared to move to virtual learning at a moment's notice. So that's part of the training we need to get them, along with the training for what they'll be doing coming up with the school year. So that's a very important piece, whether we have some short-term closures or like we had in March, we're all online. So, and again, focusing on our quality training and new instructional tools. So we have good learning experiences and solid learning experiences. We don't want this to be like it was in the spring, where it was doing the best we can. We want a very structured program, and teaching and learning. We're working very hard to finish that up and get that ready for public consumption. It's looking very good. Teachers were off contract over the summer, and of course that limited our opportunity to provide training. Being in a budget crunch, we really couldn't pay all of our teachers to come in and get the training. We're still looking at, I think, we need to remind people as much as we can, we're still looking at a $5 million deficit going into this school year. And you all were able to, as you all have seen, we're able to do it without going into furloughs, which I think is an extremely important piece. Kudos to everyone involved with that. But it does limit us in some areas. That's just the nature of it. The system, of course, is committed to our reading and math initiatives for K-5. We put a lot of time and effort, blood, sweat, and tears into that over the past 30 years or so. And we want that to go out virtually to those that have chosen virtually as close as possible to what the kids are getting in the classroom. So we're committed to that. And then we do have a lot of kids with IEPs and 504 plans out there, and they've been working on revisions, but that's going to be an ongoing process and get to every one of them. Those are things that have to be touched singly, and we have limited staff in that area, and we're just going to have to go as fast as we can, but we want to be as thorough as possible. So that's where we are there, and then my recommendation, what I've asked you all to consider tonight, is to delay our in-person and virtual choice starting the day of school for the school year to August 17th, and that will also give us a week of August 10th and 14th to provide a rolling, well spread out orientation for students to be able to come and visit the schools, not exactly an open house, but a chance to see the school in smaller numbers instead of having hundreds of people in the school buildings all at once during a couple hours on one day. Each school can spread that out over 5 days. Still gives teachers time to do some planning. Also, they can schedule their own classes to come in and meet virtually for the orientation. So, and I'm going to end up right where I started. We will not change the sentence in anything. The new, things are changing daily. We meet every day and look at all this and discuss the data that's out there and discuss what we're looking at. And based on that, definitely change. That's what we feel like. That's where our comfort spot is right now. That's what we feel most comfortable with. And let's see. The calendar, this calendar shows would be the calendar I would ask you to vote on. If you all decide to go that route, would need you all to do a vote to change the calendar. And if you look at August, that would set us back to starting date on the 17th, which is the red here. Zoom in a little bit. With that weekend goal right there being the orientation training week. Teachers would still be coming back on the 27th. That gives them a good long, good solid 2 weeks of planning and getting ready for virtual and for in-class PPE and everything that's going along with what the new teaching normal is going to be for these folks. And then the 10th through 14th to orient the kids, and also have the virtual kids if they need to or want to. They can come in, meet the teacher, not just online, and do those type of things also. So that's where we're at. Give the floor back to you.
All right. You've seen the superintendent's recommendation. At this point, I want to open it up to everybody in the room to ask any questions that you have about this, any concerns that you have, and I'll bring up the list. So, Ms. Prowse, we want to start with you. What questions do you have? Hearing none. None? All right. Ms. Bailey?
We're moving forward.
Okay. Ms. Wade?
With those that choose online, is there going to be a standard expected daily outline that they will see Monday through Friday, at least Monday through Thursday, through Friday, they can catch up that?
Right, that's pretty well, especially in the K-5, very structured day that we would have for them. Also with the blended learning pieces for the secondary. We're not going to go back to we did the best we could, and I think our teachers did a phenomenal job for the most part, but we didn't have a chance to structure it. As our teachers come back in on the 27th, we definitely want to give them some time to chime in on this, look over it. Again, as close to a normal school day as possible. Just online.
Okay.
As a board, we're here to serve our community. And we received a lot of emails this week, and there's a lot of passion surrounding what happened with our schools this year. And I have to say, Dr. McMichael, you and your team did a great job in formulating a plan that I think is going to be approved by most of the community. I think the fact that our online or virtual learners have risen a little bit, I think that's a blessing, because I think that frees up some space in the classroom. So I think we're on the right track, and I'm real pleased with the city.
I have no questions at this time. I have no questions.
Ms. Kell?
I just want to clarify though on it's not an open house, but the ones that have the concerns about the kindergarten are the ones they still will be able to meet the teacher.
Correct. That was
where
something
their
we
kids will be
were
going.
very, and the community reacted. You also how the community reacted, and rightly so. But as the governor extended the shelter, or not shelter, like the executive order, having 50 more people in the lobby kind of pushed us into that. And we, our original plan had said we're in the yellow, but it would be virtually online. But I get it. I've had 4 kids go through kindergarten and pre-K, and I definitely want those parents to have that experience if we can make it work. I think we can with this plan.
Any other questions? Dr. Hunt?
Yes, ma'am. Chris, now that we've got 25% of students electing, about 25% electing to do virtual learning, do we have enough teachers, you think, right now to do that? That's a big number.
We do. We have, again, we have a pretty, I'm gonna say a large number. We do have a good number of teachers that don't need to be in the classroom for health reasons. Most of them are great teachers, fantastic teachers, and they can do the virtually online piece. I think if that weren't the case, we'd be in kind of dire straits, because we would have to pull teachers out more, if that makes sense. So I think it's a mixed blessing that we have more. We have more to prepare for with the number of students we have going virtually, but it's also a help in ways for us to be able to get all of our teachers engaged. And again, if we get to a point where we see we need more, by delaying, we have time to go out and try to beat the bushes and round up some more help. Especially, it's always going to be an issue.
Is there a deadline for teachers to sign up for virtual teaching?
Well, right now we're working through all that. All that got, Friday was the deadline for the sign up for virtual teaching. Planning and personnel already has the list of teachers. So now they've been working feverishly to get them all lined up and see where the gaps are. So I can't quite answer that one yet, but
Okay.
I think we'll have to go to that second tier of some teachers that wanted to. They may not have health issues, but we're very interested in virtual learning and did a great job before. And definitely, I think we'll be able to pull those in some of them.
Chris, I want to make thank you for those answers. I want to make some general comments about some things that are missing in our discussion thus far. As we know, and as everyone knows, COVID-19 cases in the community are rising rapidly, and you've depicted that in your numbers on the screen. There seems to be no end in sight as to where we're heading with that. There's no end in the number of hospitalizations and deaths and just cases in general. One thing that's happening in the community is, and some of y'all may not be aware of this, but we're running out of hospital beds. Hospital beds in Northeast Georgia are at a premium, and I suspect we will run out of hospital beds for acute care cases. And what plans are in place for that, I'm not sure at this point. So that needs to be looked at and understood. When we open the schools up to students, one thing that's going to happen inevitably is we're going to see a rise in cases in the county. And by doing that, we're also going to see an increase in the number of hospitalizations, and unfortunately, I think the number of deaths by opening the schools. So I think we just need to be aware of those things. Those issues are there and they're real. The number of cases, as y'all seen, Gwinnett County today closed and they're going to go virtual. That was a decision they made today. Fulton County School Superintendent had an announcement over the weekend, and they're going virtual simply because he had some high school coaches and football players test positive, and he doesn't feel comfortable opening schools with groups of 20 testing positive. So I want to bring that to everyone's attention as well. I think we're going to overwhelm. I think potentially we're going to overwhelm the system with sick people in the system, in the schools. And I don't know how well we're going to be able to handle that. I'm not sure we're equipped to handle hundreds of sick kids in the clinics every day. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that too. I know right now we're not considering, you're not presenting to us an option to do virtual learning only at this point. But I think we all pretty much know that it's inevitable that we're going to go to virtual learning. I think it's inevitable, and the schools will close if the governor makes some sort of shelter-in-place order within the next month. I think, and I can't see how he cannot. So I'm just wondering if it's wise for us now to not consider virtual learning as one of the options for us to vote on. I know we need to vote on this. I think it's one of the most important decisions we'll make as a school board member to vote on this, because this is not only affecting students' education, which is extremely important. They don't learn if they're not in school, and I don't think they're going to learn nearly as well if they're at home. But not only that, but we're having to face the fact that by opening the schools, we're affecting people's lives and health. We're affecting children's lives and health as well too. And in the mission statement, one of the parts of our mission statement is, it says is to secure a safe and conducive environment for learning. And I'm concerned that we're not adhering to that as well as we should be if we open schools. So those are just my additional comments. And I would like to see some further consideration concerning, I know this is not popular at the moment, but some further considerations to move it 100% to virtual learning.
Now, I will say, and I neglected to mention earlier, the calendar that I'm asking you all to approve would be the calendar. If we were to have to go virtual, it would be the same calendar we would want to go with. I've seen some other districts and heard people say, let's wait till September. That's too far. That puts us a month behind instructionally. I would rather go virtual than do that. To be honest. So this calendar that I'm asking you to vote on tonight will give us that flexibility and that a little more nimbleness to, if we do have to between now and then to switch, we wouldn't have to come back in and say, let's do it in a whole new calendar. So we have thought about that piece.
Okay, I appreciate it. So, thank you.
So it's definitely been part of our conversations.
Okay, I'm sure it has. I know y'all put a lot of work into it.
On the hospital thing, I always talked to somebody in the medical field also, that a parent that also said today that we need to think when we're talking about hospitals and beds being full, that we need to also look at that those aren't all COVID cases. Some of those are these elective surgeries that doctors are still doing. And if you recall in the beginning, elective surgeries were all cut out. So we need to think of that also.
Yeah, that's part
Until
of the
they cut
process.
all elective surgeries back out again, we need to be, we don't need to just jump and look at that fact only.
Sure.
So that needs to be.
I think the beds that we're talking about are ICU beds.
Right,
It's the intensive care beds where you can do, intensive care of people on respirators. That's where we're.
but sometimes if something goes wrong with an elective surgery, which we know sometimes they do.
Yeah.
depending on What happens,
Sure.
then they end
absolutely.
up there, and that's what
Absolutely.
somebody in the medical field told me, sometimes those elective surgeries, depending on what happens, they do end up in those beds.
Sure.
I think what I'm trying to do is get us to a point where we can be as nimble as possible. Nobody likes change, nobody in education likes change, trust me. Educators probably some of the most change resistant in a lot of ways, but it's where we are, and it very well could change up honestly. But I'm comfortable right now that this is the route we need to go. If you all want to go that route, we'll make that work.
But Chris, just to confirm, so the parents see the plan. If we were to go with this option where we're in person and the option for virtual learning, if anything was to happen between now and that date, the cases were to rise or it would make us nervous of coming in person, we are for sure starting that date, all virtual.
I don't see how we can push back any further. Yeah, I just, that is as far as I'm comfortable going. I think, at some point, in other districts, cut their instructional days way back already. This keeps us at the same amount of instructional days. That's important. Our kids need to be in school. And need what teachers give them in school. And I agree with Dr. Huff on a lot of points. I think this is a different world for us as educators. And soldier on and do the best we can. We're not, we're teachers, we're educators, and if at all possible, we need to get those kids in school. And if it gets to a point where it ramps up like that, then we got to do the same thing and make a change. I would not come back to you and say, let's start in September. If I were to rank them, I would rank them right now. I would say where I am right now, virtual, and then a September start. Don't think that's good for kids.
It's just nice to have a constant.
Trying to
Starting
keep
to
this
say
constant as
no matter
possible,
what,
and I apologize to everyone listening and all of our folks. We hate to change things on you. I hope very clear that could happen, but we have to do what's best for our staff.
Yeah, and that's the other piece of it, and Jordan reminded me of that. Part of the change that we're seeing is we're pushing parents to make changes so often, and I'm afraid that we're gonna see a couple of changes here. Then we're gonna go into online and in school learning, and then we're gonna move them to virtual. And I just think that's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
We're gonna have to
I do think though that they need to have that relationship with that teacher, if at all possible. That's what helped us in that March, really make it work as well as it did, is they already knew the teacher in person, they knew the teacher. So I think it's gonna be a bit of a challenge for those families that have opted in all virtual. That's one reason we want to give them a chance at the beginning before it starts to come in and actually physically. I've said it for many, many years. It's a relationship business. All the way from the bus and lunchroom up to my office. It's a relationship business.
And so, open house are still gonna be virtual.
No, we would have wouldn't exactly be an open house, but it'd be a week-long orientation where it would be spread out, where it wouldn't have as many people coming in. Some of the teachers in schools, I'm sure, will have a virtual option for those who want to do that also. But if we can keep those numbers small and come in and meet in person, we'll be able to do that.
Well, that's so important for the kindergartners and first graders and their parents.
And I think for the
Kids
sixth
on.
graders and ninth graders.
Yeah, those two entering new school environments. Right.
It's important for everyone, but for those
Yeah.
areas, those are the most
Well,
important.
that's great. I'm glad to hear that.
Dr. McMichael, I wanted to just kind of yield until I heard what Dr. Hub had to say, as he is the physician in the room. But just based on what he said, I would like to say, I am one of the few people in the room who do have a child in the system. And you, of course, and Jordan's got a kindergarten coming up too. But, so we definitely have Debbie's got grandbabies. Yeah, okay. I guess I'm the only mom with a kid in the room. Let me restructure. And of course, I want my son in school. That's where he thrives. He does wonderful there. He gets a lot of things that he needs from school, but also, you know, as a leader, you know, I want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for everybody, not just for what I think is best for my son, but for the students, for the staff who are vulnerable. But I did some reading today, and I read something by one of my favorite authors, and I want to say this. It says, our first obligation as parents and adults is to not bring chaos into our kids' lives. And right now, we are dealing with really uncharted territory. And I would like for the people listening to know that everybody in this room cares very deeply about every parent and every child in the system. And, you know, for me, and I told you guys as a team this, my vote, even against what I want for my own son, is a vote for stability, because I know that there are parents out there that are just waiting to see what it is that they've got to do to prepare if they have to go to work and their kids are going to have to do digital learning and what. So, you know, I would definitely like to see stability and a definitive plan as quickly as possible. However, I'm definitely not opposed to waiting to see what happens in the future. Obviously, we don't have very much time left, even with this current plan. We don't have much time. Dr. Huff is right about ICU beds and things. You know, the numbers are going to go up, if for no other reason, because there's going to be more testing. We live in a very conservative area, and a lot of people are right now are saying heck no to testing, even if they have been exposed or they have, because, you know, they just don't like the way things are going. But, you know, when somebody says you can't come back to school or you can't go back to work until you get a test, what testing's going to go up. So I do think that the numbers are going to go up, and we're going to have to be prepared for that. But I think what I would like to reiterate, not to the people sitting in here, because, you know, we are very much, even if we disagree, we are all like-minded in the fact that we care very much about the kids and the parents. But, you know, I would ask for a little bit of respect for, from me as a parent to other parents. I would ask for some respect for my team that sits in this room, because this is not an easy situation. This is a hard decision to make. We have much, much more to think about than just my child or your child. We have a whole community to think about. And I would just ask that people be kind and people be respectful, and that you understand that bullying and threatening will not make any of us see things your way. And I speak to you, the public who's listening, as a parent and as a board member, and I ask that you understand that everybody in this room is doing the very best that they can. We're going to have to give each other a little bit of grace, and we're going to have to give each other some patience. If we had it my way, just to make it to where everybody could just make a plan, I would say, let's just make a decision that we can stick with. But in the fact that so many people do want to go live, I'm okay with waiting to make that decision, with the understanding that people know that this does not mean that it will happen, that school will start back live. A lot of things can happen in 3 weeks. So I just wanted to clarify that, not necessarily for you, obviously, but for the people who are listening. Because, you know, we've got to band together and do what's best for everybody. And, you know, a little bit of grace would go a long way. So on behalf of my team, I would like to ask the community to be a little kinder.
So this, I have one more question. Will face protection mandated, or?
We have mandated it for faculty and staff in certain areas.
Okay.
We expect it from students in certain conditions in certain areas. It's mandated on the school bus. There's no way to separate it all.
So we're still.
Right, but we're still, it's an expectation in some of those areas that, for example, would be face-to-face with teachers, or if you're not 6 feet apart, you can't socially distance. Respecting the health of others. And I fully understand a lot of our public, you know, doesn't want to mandate, and when you mandate something, sometimes you actually down too far, and we don't need young kids sitting all day wearing a mask. They don't need to be. However, you know, in crowded areas and buses and those type of things, we're expecting. That's it. That's in the plan, and that will go out in all the documentation.
Good
question, Debbie, and I meant to ask that. That's disappointing to me that we're not enforcing the wearing of masks in all situations in all schools 24 hours a day. I think that's the least we can do to try to slow down the spread of this virus. I can't imagine if we put 14,000 kids inside of enclosed spaces for 8 hours a day for weeks on end that we're not going to see a tremendous rise in the number of cases of COVID-19 in our community. And by wearing masks, I think that's a minimal thing we can try to do to slow this down. We're not going to be very successful if we open schools. Don't do that, Chris. I feel that's just another thing that we're going to do that's going to be detrimental. If we don't not only encourage but mandate the use of masks. But we're doing on school buses. We should be able to do it in school rooms.
All right, any other questions, concerns, comments? I have a few. First of all, I'm extremely disappointed. I don't like the facts to get in the way of fear, okay? But there's some things that we need to talk about those facts. There are 84,000 people roughly living in Barrow County. We have had 700, by the way, this started in March. So we have had 760 confirmed cases, 29 deaths. And if I'm not mistaken, the great majority of those were people over 60, mostly 70, 80, or 90, who had pre-existing conditions and were in nursing homes. When we start back, if we start back on August 17th, our children will have been out of school for 5 months. 3 months doing virtual learning, which truly nobody was prepared for. It's our job to teach these children and give them the best education we possibly can, given the resources that we have. So we turned on a dime and did what the governor and state superintendent said we needed to do. And I can assure you that the day these children come back to our classrooms, they need to be tested to be determined where they are and where they should have been at the end of school last year. And we need to have a plan in place to see to it that at the end of this year, they are where they need to be. Our job is to educate these children. And we cannot do that if they're not in the classroom. Nobody in this room would disagree with that. And I'm disappointed in this board because not one of you mentioned the socioeconomic and psychological damage to these children. Now, maybe it's because I work a lot in our nonprofit communities, and I see children every day who go hungry if they're not in schools. I see meals being packed up on weekends for our children to take home so that they will have food to eat after they eat on Friday at the lunchroom and don't get back till Monday morning. We're not taking any of that into consideration. It's beyond me that anybody, so I'm just going to go ahead and disagree with two members of the board, would think that it is acceptable for us to do virtual learning, given what we know, based on facts. And some of those facts include, we have numerous folks who deal with epidemiology and with viruses, who are doctors. 5 of them have been reported all over. When asked about the virus and what to do and how to do things and whatever, they were then asked if they would put their children back in public school, and every one of them said yes, because they also understand the other issues that are involved with children getting an education. Now, if I vote for this tonight, I need to be assured that on the 17th, when we start this back up, short of death and destruction and having to have a mercy ship somehow make its way to Barrow County, we're going to offer virtual learning and students being in the classroom. And if we can't do that, then I don't know why we're here, because we are in the business of educating children. We don't make widgets. We've got people who have been classified as essential, working in grocery stores and Walmart, but we can't figure out a way to safely teach our kids. If we can't do that, by the 17th. And y'all need to tell me why we're here. You cannot let fear dictate what we do when there's no evidence that children have any, the death rate in the entire country for children under, I think, 16 has been less than 10, maybe, I don't know, might be more than that. Who knows? Who knows how accurate the reporting is? But I do know that the more people that get tested, the lower the death rate's gonna be. Because this virus has pretty much run its course already. It's gotten weaker. We've had more testing and fewer cases of death or serious illness because of it. So, I have serious concerns about the effect that this being out of school is going to have on our children. So unless we have a plan and unless we can have our children being taught and brought up to speed and doing what needs to be done, then I don't know why we're here. I'm not happy with having to move this forward for 2 weeks because people need their children back in school and these children need to be in school. They need to be learning. So I'll get off my soapbox now.
I would say, I don't think it's that some of us didn't look at those facts you said. But my problem, I don't have a problem with moving it back 2 weeks because of the fact that Dr. McMichael came, that they don't have those other, the things that he brought to us. That's why I don't have a problem moving it back. I would have a problem, pushing it totally and just saying, we're just not going to let those people that want to take the risk and they know the risk. I think as a parent, you have a right. Once you know the risk and you know the fact, as a parent or a grandparent or whatever, you have a right to choose if you want to take that risk for your children. That's my opinion.
Correct.
And that's my opinion. I think we've heard from a bunch of parents that say, we know what those risks are. We're willing to take the risk. We want our kids in school. That's where they learn. And I think they have a right for that. That's my opinion.
And I agree, Ms. Kelly. I would also say that goes back to the stability issue. We need to give these parents stability and we need to give them options. And frankly, I think we've done a pretty good job because we have said that we will either have distance learning if they want to do that, or the schools will reopen. And that's what needs to happen, in my opinion.
And the other fact is that a lot of people aren't looking, and we've heard from some of them, these parents have jobs that they've already gone back to work. They just can't, oh, well, I can work from home. Some jobs you can. Fortunately, my husband has one he can. Not everybody can do that. And what are we going to do? We're talking, like somebody said, we're in a Title I school district. What is that going to do? We really need to think about that. We're in a Title I school district.
We also have parents who have had their children in the nursery schools have not closed. They've been open. We've had kids practicing sports for 2 weeks in our system. We've had children traveling all over the country this year, and they have not been negatively impacted. We need to think about these things. And we need to get these children back in school and get them brought up where they need to be so that they can graduate from high school and be happy, productive citizens.
I don't disagree. I think that you are, perceiving our thought process a little bit incorrectly. When I talk about stability, I mean, the yo-yo, are we going to school? Are we not going to school? How long are we going to be in school? How many days is little Johnny going to have to be out if he has a headache at school? There's a lot of things. So for me, I just wish that we could give the parents something that they could stand by. But
Well, I think we all do. And
Yeah, they have.
I think that's an underlying
Stuff of
thing.
how long they're going to be out
for
if they have
everyone.
a headache. It's all in writing. Of how long
3 to
they're gonna
14 days.
But you've also got, we always have to come back to, these are things we've never had to grapple with in education.
Exactly.
Employers are having to deal with it
We're
too.
gonna have to find the best way forward as we can, and unfortunately, that sand may shift on us. Nobody hates it more than I do. I hate I've always hated getting up in front of the staff and saying, we're gonna do this, and then 2 days later coming back and saying, well, remember what I said, we're not gonna do that, but it happens. And something we have to do. It's not comfortable by any means, and it affects a lot of people when you do it. You always have to keep that in mind. But I think this is the best balance that we.
Any other comments? All right, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation to change the start date to August 17th.
I would like to make a motion that unless the state says we cannot go back, and says just absolutely not, unless, like you said, that we start on the 17th. And let parents make that choice, that, you know, 'cause
Yeah, they've made the.
like I
we
said,
have that.
I think
The
we
choices
need to
have
just
been
go
made.
on and
Yeah.
start back on the 17th.
The choices that we made.
That's what I'm saying. I think unless there's just absolutely some astronomical reason that we can't start back,
Totally
we
agree.
need to start back on the 17th.
So are you making a motion?
Make a motion that we go with the calendar as document like was
That
presented
he's
tonight.
proposing and that we start back virtual, that we start back virtually and in the
And,
classroom.
yes, and in the classrooms on the 17th.
Short of a declaration of emergency vote.
By the governor.
Good with that.
I'll second that.
Okay, have a motion by Ms. Kelly, a second by Mr. Rayford. All those in favor, raise your right hand, please. All right, as much as I hate to do it. Motion carries. Dr. Hope, I did not see your hand.
No, I didn't, you didn't ask for those opposed, I didn't hear that.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I couldn't tell. Were you opposed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Votes 8-1 in favor
No,
of moving to.
two. I'm gonna defer with
Seven
Dr.
to two.
All right, then it's 7-2 with Dr. Huff and Ms. Bramlett being opposed to the motion. All right. There being no further business coming before the board tonight, we stand adjourned. Thank you for being here.